Single dipping? Double dipping? Triple dipping? Who knows? I've been trying to make my Andariel build here, and this morning I heard that there may be some double dipping going on in this build. I was told that some people confirmed that all dots, damage over times, are double dipping in aspects that give you increased damage versus stunned or other CC effects like Retribution and Concussive Strikes. And this may or may not be relevant to your builds. So I thought this was kind of weird, and I wanted to go test it myself. So first off, what is double dipping? If you haven't heard of it, the idea of double dipping is that different things give you multipliers. So for example, Retribution tells you that you deal 30% increased damage to stunned or knocked down enemies, which would be a single dip if you just got 30% increase when you stun them. A double dip would be if this 30% applied twice. So you got a 1.3 times another 1.3 multiplier, so you dip 2 times into this multiplier, giving you extra damage, which is super overpowered and can lead to really high numbers. So the claim was Retribution is double dipping. So let's try this out, and to do this, what I have set up here is I have Andariel's, which has flat damage, and flat damage is really nice to test with because it is consistent damage. It's not like a range of damage, like for example Flurry tells you it does 2,888 to 3,530 damage, so it's inconsistent. You're going to kind of get a range of numbers each time you try and hit. But Andariel's, you should get the same thing every time. So it's very easy to see how much stuff increased by. And then everything else doesn't add any damage. Nothing here has any additive damage that's going to affect it. Critical strike damage doesn't affect dots. And then my Paragon, I have nothing in my Paragon, and my skill tree, I don't have anything that increases my damage either. I don't have any passives or anything that's going to do anything. So we don't have to worry about those. So what we can do here is first what I'll do is I'll test on a normal training dummy, and let's see what the damage is. So let's try this again. There we go. Just one proc there, 29112. And let's do it again just for consistency. To double check, 29112. So it's the same every single time. We can do it one more time just to be sure. Come on. There it is, 29112. Guys. So we're getting 29112 every single time. Now, if I was to roll through and stun, then I'm going to now go for the Andariel proc while they're stunned. Let's see how much damage they now take while stunned. 3786. Okay. Let's try again here. Three, 7, 8, 6. Okay, so we have our numbers there. So let's pull up a spreadsheet and write down we had 2912 damage without the stun retribution effect and 3786 with it. So our percent damage difference, we could take the damage that we did with it, subtract the damage that we did without it, divide the damage that we did without, and we see that we get a 30% increase. So this is clearly not double dipping. Okay. Now, how about we do this while the boss is staggered? Well, why are we going to do that? Well, I talked to Eva from the Rogue Discord, and he let me know that this double dipping actually only occurs while the boss is staggered, which seemed kind of strange because why would it double dip while staggered but not the regular mob? But let's give it a shot and see what happens. Okay. So for this, we're going to need a boss training dummy here, and I'm going to put in Frost Burns because it helps just stagger quicker. That way we're not doing this all day here. Okay. And first off, let's see what the damage is again on the boss, just to confirm. So we can see it's still just 2912 damage. And now let's start building up some stagger, like so. And I'll speed this up so it doesn't take too long here. And then as that bar gets really close, I'm going to stop here, wait for the poison to go off. And now I'm just going to use a smoke grenade to stagger it, and then hopefully get a proc during the stagger. And smoke grenade does not increase damage taken by bosses, so don't have to worry about that. And there's our proc, 4922. So now let's see how that damage profile looks now. So we had, again, 2912 damage without it, and we had 4922 damage with it. So what's the percent difference? So we take the damage with, subtract the damage without, divide the damage without, and we get 69% more damage. Now, did that double dip? Well, if you take 1.3 multiplier and you apply that again, another 1.3 multiplier, you get 1.69. So that is a 69% damage increase. So it is double dipping. Nice. All right. So it seems kind of weird that it's double dipping on bosses while staggered, but doesn't double dip on regular mobs. But is what it is. And I wanted to go test other things to see, are they also double dipping, since that was the claim, that there are other things, anything that seems to be double dipping seemed to be something that was affected by mobs that are CC'd. So things like control, retribution, concussive, things like that. So I'm not going to go through and show all the results like we just did, but basically I did the same thing but with other aspects. So I went and I tested Noxious Toxins, which gives me a 25% increase when the mob is frozen. Tested this on a boss, and I got these without and with, which was a 25% difference as expected, so not double dipping. Control Glyph, this one's a little bit trickier. This one was claimed that this was double dipping. So here are my results. So without was 2946, with was 6580. And that seems like that goes up a lot more than 20%, but you do have to remember to get the control glyph, you end up having to get lots of CC percent damage on rogues. So you end up picking up additive damage of 86.1%, which ends up being a 1.861 multiplier, since that's my only additive damage, and with a 20% multiplier from the control glyph. So if you take 2946 times 1.861 times 1.2, then you get the expected value of 6579, which matches with what we got here. So there is no double dipping with the control glyph. Also tested the cheap shot legendary node, which gives me 5%. That was in line with the damage difference, so no. Concussive Strikes was another one that I was told was double dipping. Tried that out, so with and without, and gave me a damage difference of 20%, so that is not double dipping as well. So it seems that the only one that's double dipping is Retribution while staggered. Now, again, this is weird because it doesn't seem to stagger, it doesn't seem to double dip on regular mobs. So I had another idea that, well, maybe it has to do with the fact that while you're staggered, the mob is considered both knocked down and stunned. So maybe it is giving one multiplier for being stunned and one multiplier for being knocked down. And when I tested the regular mob, I was only stunning it. So I only got the one dip for the stun. This is when they were just stunned, right? Not knocked down. So now what we need to do is go test that as well. In order to collect this data, what I've done is I've set it up so that I can chain stun mobs using tempers and puncture. And what I'm going to do is just collect all of the crit data, all those yellow numbers there. And then I'm going to put points into trick attacks, which is going to allow me to now knock down the enemies over and over. So now you can see I'm stunning and knocking down. And now I'm going to collect all of that data and compare it, comparing just the crit numbers to be consistent. All right, so here are the results. So we can see that when I was stunning and not knocking down, then we got about these numbers here. And then when I was stunning with also knocking down, I got these numbers here. And down here we have the averages. So here's our average without knocking down, and here's our average with knocking down. And we can clearly see that with knocking down and stunning, it was higher. And if we take the damage difference between these two, we get about 36% more damage when we're stunning with knocking down. Now, what were we expecting to see? Well, if we were getting a double dip happening, so we were getting the 60% applied 2 times, well, we already had the 60% applied here. So then when we looked at these numbers, these should have been 60% higher than these numbers to get the double dip. Well, were they 60% higher as I had on my weapon? Well, no, they were 36% higher. So what's the discrepancy here? Is it double dipping? Is it not? Well, the thing is that these numbers probably weren't 100% accurate because the mob probably wasn't always stunned or always knocked down when I was hitting, leading to some of these like lower numbers here. But if you look at kind of like the high numbers, so we can see like 164, 161, things like that, compared to like the higher numbers over here, like 114, 106, 107, then we'd get much closer to that 60% increase. So I think that it is pretty clearly double dipping as well if you have both of these stuns and knockdown effects occurring at the same time. So what does that mean for your build? Well, that means that Retribution is going to give you essentially 1.6 times 1.6 more damage, which is about over 2.5 times more damage, which is absolutely huge if you put this on your two-hander. If you're not able to put it on your two-hander, then you might want to put it on your amulet. If you can't put it on your amulet, then I would definitely put it on your rings or your weapons or gloves somewhere, assuming that you have some way to stun. Very easy way to stun is by getting these tempers to stun. And then if you also have a way to knock down, this is going to help out with your clear speed a lot too, because you're going to get an additional double dip multiplier there. And again, for rogues, you can easily do this using trick attacks by dazing the enemy and then critical striking it and knocking it down. And to daze it, a very easy way to daze it is to use Concussive, which you can simply put on your boots here. I took it off because I was testing things, but just put Concussive on there, and then you now have a chance to daze, or you could also use the Temper as well. That can let you daze as well. And now you are doing a lot of damage. Alright guys, I hope this video was helpful. If you guys want to see more like it in the future, make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.